not prepared!
Welcome to another Top 5 with Kris 05, guys. It's been almost a week since the nerfs have been dropped, and the meta is really feeling different. There's a ton of old good decks that rose in popularity again, but there's also some new archetypes out there as well. So right now there's actually a good archetype for every single class out there. And as you guys know, I will let you know what all of the good working archetypes are, but we will also focus on the 5 best decks right now as well, with a mulligan guide for each of those, their win rates, and if it's worth the craft. Hope you enjoyed the video, and if you do, a like and subscribe would really help. Now let's check out the decks. The first deck on the list, I do believe, should be Beast Druid. Beast Druid is a really amazing deck right now, and it's very versatile. You can overwhelm your opponents with huge beasts as soon as turn 4 if you get lucky, and if things go according to plan, you can refill the board several times even if the opponent keeps clearing it. This is a slightly different version from the one I'm used to using, and the main difference here is we have Wing Commander instead of Kazakus here. I really do like Kazakus in this list, but obviously Wing Commander makes a lot of sense as well. We also have one Jerry Rig and 2 Soda Soils in here, and that is a great way for you to draw out some value for you in the early game too. The rest of the deck is pretty much the same as the one I've showed you several times already. We do still have Living Seed in here, because it allows you to pull off your beast combos a lot easier. But yeah, the rest is basically standard stuff. You can check out my detailed coaching video with this deck as well, so you can get a better idea of how you can be playing with it. For the matchups, mages would be pretty bad for you, and that includes Bing Mage, Big Spell Mage, and Mazaki Mage. Bone or OTK Shaman is also not gonna be too fun, because they can board lock you and freeze your entire board for 4 straight turns. Quest Warlock is also supposed to be a hard matchup, but you can actually finesse yourself the win there if you time your board refills correctly. Just try not to go all in so you don't get Giga punished by their Soul Rend, and try to save yourself some refill after a board wipe gets done. There's also a new Control Warrior that's not gonna feel too great for you, but all in all you should be able to climb. For the mulligan guide, when going first, peasants are always gonna be amazing, Form Growth Sentries and Adorable Infestation as well, Nature Studies feels pretty decent, and actually Moonlit Guidance is pretty high on this list, which feels a little bit odd. Personally, I do prefer using Moonlit Guidance around turn 4, where your beasts are actually able to be playable at that point, which can be a pretty huge tempo swing. But all in all, you can be looking at Moonlit Guidance as something like a tracking that still leaves an extra copy of that card in your deck. And that is pretty powerful. With Adorable Infestation you should be careful, because if you actually don't have a target to use it on, it's gonna be a dead card for a while for you. Kennels is also pretty nice, but try to be curving into it. And when going on the coin, again, Jerry Rig feels pretty good, Kennels again, Oracle feels a little bit too high on the list, Composting definitely can feel pretty good, Sentries is still pretty amazing, as well as Nature Studies and Druid of the Reef. Depending on the matchup, Peasant might also be a good idea, but be careful, because it's not gonna be great if you keep it against something like a Demon Hunter or a Mage, because it's basically a turn 2 ping. All in all, the deck's pretty solid, and you only have one legendary card in here, which is the Wing Commander. Aside from that, for Druid you can also be having some fun with Ramp Druid, as well as Clown Druid, and even Aggro Druid still, so there's plenty to choose from for the Druid class. Before we get into the next deck, I would like to thank today's video sponsor, Gemstone Legends. Gemstone Legends is a cool new RPG puzzle game you can play on the go for free. The art style is really cool, and it actually looks pretty similar to Hearthstone too. Oh look, there's Garrosh and Malfurion, Jaina dyed her hair red, and there's Anduin. Fabulous as ever. I've played it for a week now, and the gameplay is pretty cool too. You can match the colors in lines or diagonally, and you make 3 moves per turn, which is a pretty cool twist to this traditional playstyle. You also need to pay attention to what opponents you're fighting, since the different gem types are strong against some opponents, but weak against others. There are dozens of different characters, and also a ton of different items and artifacts you can upgrade them with. Anyway, 1,000 words are not even worth 1 minute of gameplay, so just use my link if you want to help out the channel and download the game for free. The game has amazing reviews both on the Android and the iOS shop, and you can find me in-game under the name Kris05. If you use my code to download it, not only are you gonna be helping the channel, but you're also gonna get a ton of cool free bonuses too. So go for it, download Gemstone Legends now. Alrighty, let's get back to the next deck, which is gonna be Face Hunter again. Face Hunter really rose in power once more after the nerfs to Thief Rogue, and this is one of the best performing versions out there. It's a pretty standard list, and it's running 1 Troim Crescent as well as 1 Piercing Shot, and we also have room for 2 Cult Neophytes. The Cult Neophyte slot is basically where you could get creative with this deck, and you can include a second Troim Crescent or a second Piercing Shot, or you can also remove 1 Ramming Mount for 1 extra Piercing Shot, but I really like this version, if I have to be completely honest. For the matchups, Aggro Druid and Fel Demon Hunter are gonna feel horrible for you, as well as Aggro Shadow Priest. Quest Warlock is gonna be a 50-50, as well as Boner, OTK Shaman, and Freeze Elemental Shaman. The new Control and Charge Warrior are also not gonna be too great, but all in all, the rest is pretty green. Mulligan-wise, when going first, you're gonna want your good 1-drops and something to buff them with. If you already have a good 1-drop and you know it should be sticking, keeping Doggy Biscuit is a great idea, as well as ramming Mount too. Train Crescent can be a pretty good, solid keep against some board-centric matchups as well, and Cult Neophyte could make sense against some more spell-oriented matchups. When on the coin, it's basically the same, but Guardian Ag Merchant becomes a lot more keepable because you can actually ping down something that has 1 health for the opponent. You can also just coin it out in combination with Intrepid Initiate or Iron Deep Trog, and again, Train Crescent is gonna be pretty amazing, so you can fight back for the board. The deck is not too expensive, and you probably already have it if you enjoy this playstyle anyway. Other than that, for Hunter, Quest Hunter is also doing pretty fine from Diamond to Legend, and there's also this Beast Hunter that is also doing pretty fine on those ranks too. But Face Hunter for sure is gonna be your safest bet. Next up is Quest Shaman, which also rose very high in popularity after the nerfs. Quest Shaman has been a pretty solid archetype, and even after the nerf to it, it's still doing pretty fine. It's not looking too different from the list from the past, but this one also utilizes the new Multicaster, which can really draw you a ton of extra resources, which is something that the deck can sometimes struggle with. You have spells from all sorts of different schools, so you can be drawing as much as 4 cards out of each Multicaster. We also have a couple of Canal Sluggers, so we can actually reach our good mid-game, and we also have Sleet Breakers, which are an excellent tool for controlling the board and also thinning out your deck. We also have a couple of overdrafts, so we don't have to be caring about overloads, but the rest is looking like the same good old Quest Shaman. For the matchups, Mazaki OTK Mage is not gonna be too good for you, but the matchup is a little bit rarer now, so you got that going for you. Quest Can Warlock is not gonna be too good for you as well, but it's not impossible either. As you can see, Poison Rogue was really holding it down before, but now that matchup is basically gone, and Quest Rogue is not too popular either, so all in all you should be climbing with no problems. Mulligan-wise, depending on the matchup, you might want to be keeping some good removal for the early game. Sleet Breaker is always gonna be fine, so you can control the board and draw cards. Lightning Bloom is pretty cool, Pharaoh Spirit as well, depending on the matchup. Guidance I would be keeping all of the time as well, because it's a lot of good resources and quest progression. And also Primordial Studies can make a lot of sense too. When on the coin, you should be keeping removals even harder, because you will be second on the board, so there's always gonna be something to remove. Multicaster becomes a lot more keepable as well, especially if you're curving into it well. This is another very cheap deck, so yeah, Hearthstone is definitely not pay to win right now, is it? It only has 2 legendaries and 2 epics, and the rest is cheap stuff. So if you want to be enjoying this archetype for the next 2 or 3 months, this would be a good time to be crafting it. For other good Shaman decks, we also have Burn Shaman, Freeze Elemental Shaman, Just Elemental Shaman, and all sorts of iterations to those archetypes. So again, it's pretty versatile. On the number 4 spot, we have a new archetype that started to work. Charge Warrior, which is basically a control warrior with an OTK potential. The deck is not super popular just yet, but it's definitely something you need to know about. And you also should be prepared what the OTK looks like, so you're ready for it and maybe try to counterplay it. The deck is full of control tools, and the game plan is basically to drag out the game till turn 10, or even sooner, if they manage to chip you down a little. And here's how the OTK happens. They use double to the front, which discounts their minions by 4, and that allows them to play Captain Galvanger, which has no problem getting 15 armor as soon as turn 3 by the way, so it's always gonna be a 9/9 charge. So Captain gets dropped down to only 2 mana, you get to copy it twice with a couple of Faceless Manipulators which cost 1 mana, and you can also give Wind Fury to the whole thing, which is also costing 2 mana, and that is the grand total of 10 mana for 45 OTK potential. The deck is also running Rakara, which got a little bit buffed with extra armor, Radogor is fitting pretty nicely in the deck, and the rest is basically hard control tools, including Bulwark, Lord Baroth, and also Rancors and Brawls. Shield Shatter is also a pretty insane removal for them, because it's usually down to 0 mana, especially when they combo it with Frozen Buckler. So yeah, the deck is definitely very hard to play against, especially if their removals click on time. Matchup wise, I can't show you much information just yet, but it's basically gonna be destroying all of the aggro decks. But it's gonna be losing against most of the control-y decks as well, so there's that. For the mulligan, you basically keep your removals, and depending on the matchup, you choose the better ones. The deck is definitely not too cheap, but if you have been missing the Control Warrior archetype, now would be a good time to be spamming this deck. The games go pretty slow, so be ready for that. Other than that, for Warriors, still Quest Warrior is pretty fine, but the win rate definitely got toned down, as well as the popularity, so I guess the nerf really worked. Big Warrior is still acceptable as well, and there's also a Heart Control Warrior too, but that one is not doing as good as the one I just showed you. And the last deck on the list, again, is gonna be Quest Hand Warlock, which is still a pretty big force to be reckoned with. Quest Warlock has been defining the meta ever since the quest got printed, and this version is actually also including one Showstopper, which can be a pretty good tech card against Freeze Shamans for instance, or even against Miracle Priests. Showstopper never really saw much play in the past, but it actually makes a lot of sense in this deck, because let's say if a Shaman freezes a couple of giants for you, you can just Showstopper and touch of FNAF Regime or Drain Soul, and that way you're ready to go with 16 damage. And that also reduces the stats of our Snowfall Guardian down to 3/3 again, which is pretty cool. Other than that, this deck looks pretty similar to what it used to be. For the matchups, I'm showing you a little bit more populated list so you can get a better picture, but yeah, Face Hunter is not gonna be too hot, as well as Ramp Druid, and Mages are gonna be 50-50, and the rest is pretty good. I'm also gonna use the popular list for the Mulligan Guide as well, but it really comes down to what you're playing against, so be careful what you keep when you're going first and when going second. Here are the general stats for when going first, and here's what it looks like when going second. But it really comes down to the matchup you're playing against. For other good Warlock decks, there's also a Quest Warlock out there that is doing pretty fine. LTK is also barely working still, and there are also a bunch of other suboptimal Warlock lists out there as well, so yeah, definitely stick to Quest Handlock. For the classes I didn't mention today, for Demon Hunter we have Death Rattle Demon Hunter and Fel Demon Hunter at the top, and I actually almost included Fel Demon Hunter into this top 5 because it's a pretty good deck. Quest Lifesteal Demon Hunter is also getting back into top Legend, but it's not something Diamond to Legend players will be using a lot. For Mage, Ping Mage, Big Spell Mage, and even Mozaki Mage are still working. And a few days ago, somebody reached rank 1 legend with a Mozaki Mage, so yeah, the nerf didn't actually fix the problem, but the popularity at least dropped, so we got that going for us. With Paladin, it's basically Libram Paladin mainly, but there's also a barely working buff Paladin list too. For Priest, Aggro Shadow Priest and Miracle Priest are the best performing archetypes, and I also almost included Miracle Priest in this top 5, but the deck is just too hard to play for most people, so I decided to go for some more straightforward decks. Quest Priest is also doing pretty fine as a control deck, and the rest is basically iterations of these three. For Rogue, Poison Rogue is still doing pretty good even after getting nerfed 3 times, but this is the classic Poison Rogue version without the gnolls. Quest Rogue is actually the best performing archetype, and Thief Rogue is still playable, but it's definitely not as good as it used to be. So that's gonna be it for this top 5 guys. Hope this helps you figure out what you wanna be playing in this new meta. Don't forget to check out Gemstone Legends and download the game from the links in the description. Thanks for watching, I'm Kris05 and I'll see you in my next video or stream.